The name Haggai means festive or festival, and his ministry was apparently of limited duration. He was fully aware that he was God's messenger, because he affirmed the divine authorship of his messages over 25 times in these 2 chapters. The theme of the book is the rebuilding of the temple, which was destroyed by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar over 65 years earlier. Now, a little background. About 85 years earlier, in 605 BC, the Babylonian army came into the land of Judah, the southern kingdom, and took about 10,000 captives back to their land. They came back again in 597 BC and took more captives. And finally, in 586 BC, after the leadership and remaining Jews in Judah had rebelled against their authority, Nebuchadnezzar and his army leveled the city and burnt the Temple of Solomon to the ground. The Jews were now without a temple and without their sacrifices. Now, in 539 BC, Cyrus the Great, the Persian king, gave the Jews permission to return to their land and rebuild their temple, and about 50,000 Jews returned, with Zerubbabel, the civil ruler, and Joshua serving as the high priest. Levitical sacrifices were soon reinstituted on a rebuilt altar for burnt offering, and in the 2nd year of the return, the foundation of the temple was laid. However, because of opposition and harassment from outsiders, and indifference by the Jews, the work on the temple stopped, and it did not resume again for another 16 to 17 years, and that is where Haggai the prophet comes in. He is the first of 3 prophets to minister after the return from Babylon, along with Zechariah and Malachi. God commissioned both Haggai and Zechariah to stir up the people to rebuild the temple and put their spiritual houses in order. During the decade and a half of indifference, there were drought and crop failures due to their misplaced priorities. But in rebuilding the temple, the people would be inviting the Lord to come back and dwell in their midst. So, Haggai prophesied over a period of 4 months, and he had 4 messages for the people. Not only did he arouse the leaders and people of Judah from their spiritual lethargy, but he also spoke to them about the peace, prosperity, divine rulership, and national blessings that Israel would experience during the time of the millennium. The ministry of Haggai and Zechariah were a success, because the people heeded their exhortations, and 4 years later, in 516 BC, the construction of the temple was completed. For more information on the events that took place, from the time that the children of Israel were released from Babylon until the time that the temple was completed, please read the first 6 chapters of the book of Ezra. So here's the outline. In chapter 1, we have the first message, and it is a call to build the temple. This was given on the first day of the 6th month. In chapter 2, verses 1 through 9, we have Haggai's second message, and this was given on the 21st day of the 7th month. He encouraged the people with assurance of the Lord's presence, and he made clear that the glory of the future temple would exceed that of the past. In chapter 2, verses 10 through 19, we have the third message, and this was given on the 24th day of the 9th month. We're given a ritual comparison showing the corrupting effect of sin and a promise of present blessing in contrast with previous chastening. And finally, in verses 20 through 23, we're given the final message. This was also given on the 24th day of the 9th month. Here we have a proclamation of the future overthrow of the Gentile kingdoms and a proclamation of the restoration of the Davidic kingdom. This section is dealing with the millennium, when our Lord Jesus Christ reigns on the earth. In our next study, we will look at the prophecies of the man who served alongside Haggai during this time. Some of the most important prophecies dealing with the Great Tribulation period and subsequent millennial reign of Christ are found in our next book.